Welcome to the Betting Pros PGA Podcast. I'm Pat Fitzmaurice, joined by Bo McBrayer. One Hawaiian tournament down, one Hawaiian tournament to go. We will start today's show with a brief recap of the Sentry, the first PGA Tour event of 2025, and then we will give you a full betting preview of the Sony, the second leg of the two-leg Hawaiian swing of the PGA Tour, and then we will conclude the show with our one-and-done picks. Let's start with the Sentry. Hideki Matsuyama roared out of the gates with a convincing win in Kapalua. The Sentry is always a birdie fest, and Matsuyama made a lot of birdies. He finished minus 35 for the week with rounds of 65, 65, 62, and 65. Not too bad, Bo. Nothing worse than a 65 for Hideki. He finished 3 shots ahead of a guy you and I were both pretty much in on last week, Collin Morikawa. Morikawa went into the final round 1 shot behind Hideki, but got off to a slow start on Sunday. He was only 1 under par in the front 9, parred both of the par 5s, and if you let the birdie train pass you by at Kapalua, you are going to lose ground in a hurry, and that's pretty much what happened. Sungjae Im was the only other player within shouting distance of Matsuyama. He was a solo third at minus 29, Johnny Vegas fourth at minus 25, and Ludwig Oberg, Corey Connors, and Thomas Detry tied for 5th at minus 24. Bo, I came up empty last week. I had outright bets on Morikawa and Sungjae Im, but didn't bother to pop top 5 bets on either of those guys. So a big blank for me. How did you do, and did you have any takeaways from the Sentry?
Yeah, I didn't win much. It was just a little bit on the top 5 on Morikawa, which was disappointing because he ended up shooting the tournament record over 4 days. Unfortunately, Hideki Matsuyama shot the tournament record by 4 shots and took it home. So all the elements to a big win to lead off an opening salvo of the PGA Tour season were there, except we didn't account for Matsuyama going completely nuclear and not making any mistakes over 4 days. And Morikawa just one little slip up in the morning on Sunday, and that was it. It was curtains. Matsuyama was flawless, and we knew that could happen. He's a great ball striker. That's why we were on Morikawa. They're a similar style player. Matsuyama is just unbelievably perfect for 4 days, and you tip your cap to a guy, but it really stunk because we had 10-1. I had a pretty nice 10-1 lined up for myself when they started play on Sunday. And then when he only went 1 under on the front 9, I was like, well, that's probably it.
And indeed it was. Hideki seems to have like 2 tournaments like this every year where he is just spot on with the ball striking and rolling in putts. And he's pretty tough to beat when he's on the top of his game. Like he is, one of the best in the world when he has his A game. So
absolutely.
Well, let's turn our attention to the Sony. And as noted earlier, this is a full field event with 144 players. And unlike the Sentry, the Sony will have a cut. The Sony will once again be played at Waialae Country Club, a par 70 playing to 7,044 yards. This is a much different course than the Plantation course at Kapalua. Kapalua is long, wide open with big, slow greens. Waialae is a short course with a half dozen dog legs, tree-lined fairways with overhanging trees in some spots. Fairways aren't necessarily narrow, but because of the dog legs and trees, accuracy off the tee is critical. You have to be really precise with how you play these angles. The Bermuda greens at Waialae are smaller and faster than the ones we saw last week at the Sentry. They let the rough grow about 3/4 of an inch longer here in 2023 than it had been to make the course just a little bit tougher, but still you're going to see low scores here. Usually something in the minus 17 to minus 19 range. Typical winning score. Accuracy off the tee important. Short iron play important, and the short game is important, especially putting. The defending champion is the late Grayson Murray. Grayson Murray was a surprise winner last year, beating Keegan Murray and Ben An in a playoff after finishing at minus 17. Sadly, Murray took his own life last May. He had battled addiction issues and depression. So, yeah, rest in peace, Grayson Murray. But that was a memorable win for sure. And I think
Oh
Murray
yeah,
went off
it's
at what?
out of nowhere too.
Yeah, like 250 to 1 or maybe even longer than
Mhm.
that. So,
Yeah.
before that, other past champions, Siwoo Kim won the Sony in 2023 with a score of -18, one shot better than Hayden Buckley. Hideki won here in 2022. Matsuyama finished -23 that year, beating Russell Henley in a playoff. Kevin Na finished 21 under to win the Sony in 2021, and Cameron Smith won it at a relatively high winning score of -11 in 2020, beating Brendan Steele in a playoff. The forecast this week calls for dry conditions, temperatures of around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and somewhat breezy conditions this week, Bo, with wind in the 10 to 20 mile an hour range. What do you make of Waialae, and what's it going to take to win the Sony?
So I always called it Waialae, and then I played when I was a kid. I mean, this is a long time ago, but there was a video game on Nintendo 64 that was called Waialae Country Club Golf, and it just had one course. This one, Waialae Country Club, on Oahu, and you only had one golfer that you could choose from. It was like before Tiger Woods video game came out. But I would play that over and over and over and over and over again. But now that's how I know it's pronounced Waialae.
Waialae, okay.
Yeah, there is a Wailea that's on the same island, but this is Waialae.
Waialae.
Why lie when you can tell the truth? But it's in the game. I remember it was a par 72 because it was more of a members type video game that was developed by Nintendo. And it was a par 72, but it was still 7,000 yards. And I got really good at that game. And now that the pros have been playing there for a long time, it's one of the longest standing events on the PGA Tour, the Sony Open, if not the longest. I'm sure it's up there. But 7,000 yards, it's par 70, very short, but those dog legs are very tricky. And the trade winds on Oahu are very important because they always blow. And that's why they're called trade winds. Like you can count, you can actually measure that stuff is going to be consistently windy there. It's going to be breezy no matter what because it's always passing through there. This course is when they grew the rough out last year, it made a difference. It went from 21, 22 under par to 18 under par. That is substantial. I don't know how well we'll see the field play here, especially after some of them played at Kapalua, which is super duper easy and not at all like this course. Like they're both in Hawaii. That's about the only thing that's similar between Kapalua and Waialae. It's going to be accuracy. It's going to be precision. It's going to be consistency. And these greens are not easy to putt. They're a little quicker than Kapalua. They're smaller. They're harder to hit, but they're not easy to read, and they have a little more undulation. So I think that if you have a guy that's just out there throwing darts, like Grayson Murray was last year, he was unconscious on approach. He was hitting all the fairways, and he was so good at sticking it close with those short irons that was a foregone conclusion. Is if you hit it close here, you're going to be right up there with everybody else. And it's hard to predict who's going to win here because you get those out of the ordinary winners all the time here. But at the same time, we have some really, really scorching hot golfers coming into this golf course. So we might see a return to low 20s under par. That's kind of what I'm thinking is just the field strength is better this year. And we have some really incendiary golfers right now playing this course for 4 days. I think it's going to be really fun.
Fun indeed. And yeah, the models I've seen, the people who do the statistical modeling, it seems like the key things here, well, obviously putting, but maybe above all else, approach from like 125 to 175.
Yep.
Like that is key. Long and middle irons. I
Something
guess.
like 64% of the approach shots are going to be within that bucket.
Yeah.
So
all right. We will get to the odds in just a minute, but first,
download the free Betting Pros app for iOS and Android. With Sportsbook Sync, you can automatically track your bets across all major sportsbooks in one spot. Easily monitor your bet performance by sport and bet type, including game picks, props, and parlays. Create custom betting systems to find winning trends and profitable opportunities. Get a free trial of Betting Pros Premium by downloading the app and activating your trial on the upgrade screen.
All right, on to the odds for the Sony. All odds are courtesy of DraftKings as of Monday afternoon. Let's start by looking at some of the favorites. Fresh off his victory at the Sentry, Hideki Matsuyama opens as the favorite at plus 900. Not a surprise considering that he won last week and is a past winner in this event.
Mm-hmm.
Corey Connors, the very precise ball striking Canadian, is at plus 1400. Tom Kim and Russell Henley are plus 2000. Byeong Hun and Keegan Bradley are plus 2500. Robert McIntyre and Maverick McNealy are plus 2800. And Siwoo Kim and Sahith Theegala are plus 3,000. Do you like any of the favorites, Bo?
Well, yeah, of course. It's Hideki Matsuyama, past winner a couple of years ago. 9-1's not bad for a betting favorite, especially when we just saw dominate an easy golf course. This is not an overly difficult golf course because of its short length. I think betting Matsuyama at plus 900 is okay, but I almost would rather play Corey Connors at 14-1 because he impressed me last week. All the things that he does well, we're going to play very well at Kapalua. They're going to play even better at Sony as long as he can keep up the short game form he showed last week. Other than a couple mistakes around the greens last week, he was pretty much spot on in the short game area where he's been god awful most of his career. This is still one of the premier ball strikers in the entire world, and if he can be flatline on the short game and putting, this is going to be a guy who can go really low on a golf course like this. We've seen it a lot from Corey Connors. When he wins, it's usually on a course like this where it's just target practice, and he's out there hitting all the fairways, hitting all the greens, sticking it close, and it doesn't matter how bad your putting is if you're sticking it to 6 to 10 feet all the time. Like, you're giving yourself all those opportunities. It's the Scotty Scheffler paradox.
Yeah, tee to green. This course suits Corey Connors perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, if he putts well, he is going to contend. There's no
Mm-hmm.
question about it. If he putts poorly, that's the one thing that can, cheat us out of whatever we decide to put on him this week. So Matsuyama, I agree, Bo. My thoughts exactly. Like, if we were getting him at maybe plus 700, plus 600, he'd be a little less appealing, but 9-1, not bad considering the form and that he's won here before, although that was his only top 10 here.
Yeah. And that's a keen line. Like, they're playing into our heartstrings already, knowing that we have a past champion who's coming off a big win in the same state. And the layperson doesn't know that these golf courses are polar opposites. And they'll see the surface level stats and be like, well, Hideki's going to win. And they'll take 9-1 and run all the way to the sportsbook window. But at the end of the day, you got to boil it down to who's the best value. Even if they're the favorite, it's got to be a decent value. I think the plus 900 number is almost too good. It's where it's like, it's almost a sucker bet. You're like, okay, what are we walking into here? Because they don't have a bunch of glitzy lights in Las Vegas for no reason. I that's kind of in the back of my mind here. So if I bet Hideki, it's not going to be aggressively. But Connors is there, and for the opposite reason as Corey Connors, I'm betting Mav McNealy at 28-1 because this is a guy with an immaculate short game, one of the best putters on the planet, who's all of a sudden found some ball striking form over the last 6 months, and he's red hot. He looked amazing last week striking the ball, which is he's never been known for that. He's been known for rolling putts and getting up and down to get himself out of trouble when he sprays the ball everywhere. Maverick McNealy got a little bit of coaching at the end of last year, and ever since then, he's been razor sharp, and this is his type of golf course. I think Mav McNealy at 28-1 is a steal.
Tom Kim, Bo, do you think he suits, this course suits him? I mean, he has made just one appearance here and he missed the cut, but, took second place at the World Hero World Challenge last month. It does seem like he has the game to win here potentially.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is, why how he could have missed the cut here since he won the Wyndham a few years ago. That's a comp course for the Sony Open at Waialae. I just don't see how he could play poorly here, but he apparently did that one time. I think he's definitely a contender here. I think his odds are incredibly short for what he's shown us recently. His putting's been very bad. His short game's okay. His iron play is what keeps him in contention a lot of times. He's a very accurate driver of the golf ball. He should play well here. I just don't know that I like his number this week. It's a little short for my liking.
Yeah, I don't like 20 to 1 either that much. Russell Henley, on the other hand, Bo, at 20 to 1. He is a Bermuda ace, for one thing. He plays Bermuda greens well. Got his first PGA Tour win here back in 2013. He was fourth here last year, second in 2022. Bo, I've had some not very good luck betting Russell Henley on this tournament before, but he's come oh so close, and I think I'm going to be suckered into betting him again.
Yeah, I just worry about his consistent form. Like when we see Russell Henley dialed in, he can win this tournament pretty easily because it just fits him like a glove. What a great iron player who also makes. I mean, this course is exactly what Russell Henley needs to contend. It's a short course that demands accuracy and good putting. It's a Russell Henley golf course, and he's always played well here. But every time we seem to bet him because of all these reasons over the years, he comes out not necessarily flat, but maybe he's not on his A game when he comes to the Sony. That's kind of in the back of my mind, just looking at his recent form at the end of last season, not the greatest. But at the same time, if he comes in razor sharp, then he could absolutely win this thing again.
Let me just mention a couple of other guys. Byeong Hun An has made 2 appearances here. He was 12th 2 years ago, second last year. I mentioned earlier Siwoo Kim as a past champion. He also finished fourth here in 2016, but recent results in Waialae, have been a mixed bag, and he didn't play especially well in the Sentry. And Keegan Bradley, the Ryder Cup captain, to be maybe trying to earn his way onto the team as a playing captain, second here last year and was 15th last week at the Sony. So he's in pretty good form and has shown some aptitude at Waialae. So, all right, Bo,
Yeah, lots of names to consider this week. And like I said before, a lot of these guys are red hot, and this course is ripe for the picking. It's going to be really entertaining.
Yes, it is. All right, let's look at some of the mid-range plays. Taylor Pendrith, Kurt Kitayama, and JT Poston are plus 3,500. Davis Thompson, Luke Clanton, and Austin Eckroat are plus 4,000. Ben Harmon, Ben Griffin, and Harry Hall are plus 4,500. Chris Kirk is plus 5,000. Sepp Straka is plus 5,500. And then we have a big group at plus 6,000 with Denny McCarthy, Daniel Berger, Tom Hoagie, Cam Davis, Mackenzie Hughes, and Harris English. And at plus 6,500, we have Thomas Detry, who played well last week, Billy Horschel, Andrew Novak, and Michael Thorbjornsen. How about these guys, Bo? Anyone you like here?
Big group of more guys that can absolutely win this tournament, and sifting through it, this is where handicapping your own lines is important. Is before you look at the sportsbook lines, try to set your own lines for these players, and where the discrepancies lie in your favor is where you should bet most of the time. I have an emotional attachment to Kurt Kitayama. He has pretty good history here, but 35 to 1 seems awful short for a guy who hasn't been in the best form. I would love to bet him, but not at that number. Looking at Luke Clanton, however, I had him handicapped at 25 to 1. Luke Clanton at 40 to 1 is a green flag, green light. We are pedal to the metal betting the house on Luke Clanton at 40 to 1 because that's a sparkling number for a guy that played out of his mind last year.
Yeah, very impressive young player, and it might be like one of those things where Akshay Bhatia, where we want to get him now before the lines move down on him forever. And
yeah, that's at 40 to 1 on him at this course, where it's like that the Corey Connors thing from tee to green. You're thinking, oh, it's a short course. You have to find the fairway and you have to hit it close. That's Luke Clanton. This guy's a short iron wizard. He's very aggressive. Most of these younger players are very aggressive. There's really not that much penalty out here, which we said, yeah, you want to hit the fairways and hit the greens close so that you can score, but there's no penalty for missing. Like you got bunkers, you got some decent rough, but this golf course isn't going to penalize you too much unless you miss the birdie train like last week.
Yes.
It's like making pars here is not bad, but it's also not great. Luke Clanton is an aggressive player that's going to be able to fire at some pins. A lot like my other pick in this range at Michael Thorbjornsen, another guy who plays great short iron work. When he played well last year, it was on courses of this length, under 7,400 yards. He was a different golfer. The longer courses kind of ate him up because he was hitting longer irons than he was ever used to at Stanford. Clanton and Thorbjornsen are two young guns that are, again, like you said with Akshay, is get them while they're cheap and they're paying out big time for winning, because when they hit, those odds are going to go bye-bye forever.
Yep. And, Clanton's already, his odds are starting to come down a bit, plus 4,000, but Thorbjornsen at plus 6,500. Yeah, I know. That's a nice
kept
price.
secret on tour. Best kept secret on tour.
Yeah. Kind of intrigued. Like, I feel like Thomas Detry is a better player than this number suggests. So I think there's some value there. JT Poston, I'm always interested in the guy who hits it straight and putts well on this course, but plus 3,500, kind of a yellow light price for me. I'd rather see him at around 50 to 1 than 35 to 1. Let's see, Taylor Pendrith finished 10th here last year in his second Sony appearance, and he was 13th at the Sentry. So kind of a momentum play potentially. Ben Griffin has fared well in the strokes gained metrics here in 2 appearances. He's finished 30th and 12th. And Daniel Berger hasn't played the Sony since 2021, but he finished 7th that year and has 3 top 15s in his last 6 trips to Waialae. So what about longer shots, Bo? Guys with odds of 70-1 or longer. Anyone you're taking a flyer on?
I'm taking a flyer on a guy who has played very poorly for a long time, but he's always got the talent to get hot and make a course like this his own. We saw it when he won the when he got tackled by security at the Royal Canadian Open when Nick Taylor won, but Hadwin was in that hunt, and that's a very similar course that year. Adam Hadwin at 120 to 1, it's just a misprice for me, and it's baked in. 120 to 1 is because he's played terribly for the last calendar year. But this is the kind of course where he can wake up, not really have a lot of pressure on him. He's got his beautiful wife. That's a great Twitter follow, by the way. Adam Hadwin's wife on Twitter is hilarious because she spends most of her tweets making fun of her husband for various things, including being tackled by security at the Royal Canadian Open. I like Adam Hadwin this week at 121. He's just way too good of a golfer with a good course fit here. That's just a misprice that I'm going after, but I'm going to be putting a lot of my eggs in the basket of some of these mid-range guys that we talked about.
Yeah, Hadwin, a guy who can absolutely go bonkers with the putter at times. I have to admit, I had trouble finding long shots that I like in this event, Bo. It seems like the guys with slightly shorter prices are the best values. One guy who kind of interested me is Mac Meissner, just because he's good with his short and middle irons. Yes. Like really, really good from that range. And
I looked at him too, Pat. My eyebrow went up on one side when I saw Mac Meissner at the number that he's at. Was it 80? Is that yes, right?
Yes, 80 to 1.
80 for Mac Meissner is intriguing. I will have to revisit that maybe as a live bet if he's like maybe because he might slip really quickly because he's relatively unknown. If he gets off to a couple pars and a couple guys go out early, that's a guy who I wouldn't mind live betting at 95 to 100 or more.
Yeah, fairly accurate driver of the ball and just a wizard with the short irons. All right, Bo, what do you have on your betting card as of now?
All right, so I have outright on Corey Connors at 14 to 1, Mav McNealy at 28 to 1 with a top 10 kicker. I have outrights and top 10s on and top 20s on Clanton and Thorbjornsen. Those are my ladder picks in the mid range. Let's go for the big bucks, baby.
Nice.
And then I threw out a quarter unit. Why not on Adam Hadwin on 120-1.
Very nice. All right. Right now I've got Ben on at plus 2,500 to win and plus 500 for a top 5. I've got JT Poston for a top 5 only at plus 650. I just don't really like JT to win, but I like JT to maybe make some noise. I'm going to go with Mac Meissner. I'm a little something on an outright at plus 8,000, although I kind of like your idea of live betting him.
One time.
Yes.
Come on, Mac.
And also plus 600 for a top 10 there. Yes. But as convinced, I always have to add the guy you're passionate about, Bo, and your Maverick McNealy. Your soliloquy on him has kind of sold me here, Bo. So I'm going to have to add.
It doesn't hurt that he's also from Northern California, so that's naturally where I'm going to go.
All right, bias. Never mind. It's off.
But I have more information about those guys because they're in the news,
point.
You know.
Good point. And you showed your lack of bias by not jumping on Kurt Kitayama this week, so I have to give you credit for that. It's not
as
not
much as I wanted to. Yeah, the number was not good.
Yeah.
Watch.
All right, now on to the one and done competition. Bo took Tony Finau last week. He tied for 15th, good for $292,000. I had Justin Thomas, a little disappointing, tied for 26th, good for $163,333. I'm up first this week, Bo. I'm going to take Ben on, a player I want to use at some point here, and I don't know how many other great spots there are for him. This feels like a good one.
I'm going to go parlay that, what we were just talking about, with Maverick McNealy. That's who I'm going with this week. Let's go, Mav.
All right, so there it is. Maverick McNealy for Bo McBrayer and Ben on for Pat Fitzmaurice. And that is going to do it for this week's Betting Pros PGA podcast. We will be back next week as the PGA Tour returns to the mainland with a preview of the American Express, the Amex. Until then, so long, everyone.